And then one thing people always ask is, should I continue the TRT? Is it beneficial? It is beneficial. All right, well, you're coming down with a cold, flu. Is there anything that you can take and minimize your symptoms that is not antibiotic related? Well, as a matter of fact, there is, right? So the minute you get those symptoms, these would be the things that I would suggest you get started on. So number one, zinc lozenges. There is a lot of evidence suggesting that zinc has a pretty significant effect on reducing viral replication. So the minute you get those symptoms, the last thing you want to do is for the viruses to replicate and you get a much worse reaction. So start taking these lozenges. You can get them in a Walgreens. Typically want a lozenge that has at least 15 milligrams of zinc. And I would start taking them for about 3 days, one every 2 to 3 hours. As I mentioned, they seem to block viral replication and reduce the stickiness of the virus to mucous membrane. So, and subsequent movement, of course, intracellularly. Vitamin D. So I'm a big fan of vitamin D. And most of you, if you're on the VitaPack, will already be on this, which is going to help a whole bunch. Vitamin D really reduces inflammatory cytokines. So it reduces the inflammatory response that you get to viruses, which in many cases is worse than what the virus does. Itaginine. So this is kind of interesting. This is usually used for heartburn. It's a histamine blocker that primarily works on histamine receptors in the stomach, but it does seem to have antiviral properties. So you wouldn't take a tremendous amount. You'd only take it for about 2 to 3 days, 800 to 1,000 milligrams. It's about 3 to 4 tablets. Again, this is over the counter. And it seems to have pretty significant antiviral properties and can decrease viral replication, much like zinc. Vitamin C. So I'm a huge fan of this. I would suggest taking, even though this seems like a pretty stout dose, 10,000 milligrams, it really makes a big difference in enhancing white blood cell migration and production, particularly neutrophils, which will engulf the viruses. I would try to recommend getting it from ascorbic acid because that seems to be a little bit more gentle on your stomach in terms of absorption. It's really important to get sleep. So again, I know many of you guys, this is, kind of difficult to do. You have young children, you have a crazy business, you're taking off. If it's at all possible, try to take 2 or 3 days off or try to, maybe clear your schedule for a few days because just sleep and rest can make a huge difference in terms of recovery. If you can't do that, at least try to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep. So, maybe put off that meeting or be like, hey, reschedule that client. It long-term will be worth it because you'll feel so much better with getting that period of sleep and resting. And then for symptoms, oxymetazoline, known as Afrin, which will cause constriction of vessels and help with congestion of your nasal passages, as well as acetaminophen, which is Tylenol. It can really help for symptom relief. And Tylenol, of course, would be for severe fevers. So these guys are here to be helpful. Now, if you're able to do this, raw garlic, particularly if it's chopped and chewed, there's this compound within it, allicin, which really does seem to have antiviral activity. You're not going to be very popular, particularly if you live with other individuals in your house, if you do this, of course, but it is an option. There are allicin extracts that you can also utilize, and you'd need about 9,000 to 18,000 milligrams daily. So this is also an option as well. And then one thing people always ask is, should I continue the TRT? Is it beneficial? It is beneficial. We've known for some time that testosterone really seems to mediate the inflammatory response. And here's 2 animal studies that have looked at how testosterone may have a protective effect in the flu, right? So here's a study that shows that testosterone protects against severe influenza, reducing pro-inflammatory cytokines. Now, again, this is in an animal study in mouse lung, right? So that was pretty interesting. And then there's another study that suggested that age as well as testosterone levels are related to how bad the course of influenza in male mice, right? And those individuals that were older as well as had decreased testosterone levels seem to do very far worse in terms of their mortality. So that would be my suggestion if you're coming down with a cold or flu.